Hey, cool cats. It's the magic word. I'm Paul.
I'm Rob.
Boros! Hey, Rob. So today we are talking about Boros strategies, synergies, combinations, everything. We're going to do a big series, multiple videos all about Boros because there's many different ways that you can play Boros. And of course, this is probably thought of as the weakest combination for EDH Commander, but it could be the most fun as well, depending on your playstyle. So what do you say we just dive in, look at everything right now?
Yeah, let's do it. You got to be creative when you get to these two colors because they don't have the support that like blue and black and especially green have. So you're exactly right, because if you are looking for something challenging to do, like you want some way to stretch your deck building skills, like this is how you do it. There are no easy answers in Boros.
So you have spell-based, so you're going to be using different white and red, all kinds of spells, instants, and sorceries. There's many different things that interact with that. But then there's also Boros permanents. And so, I mean, right there, that's a diverging line of play. And then there's all different kinds of styles that you can play. So you can do spell-based control with like Fire Song and Sun Speaker, or you can do spell-based Voltron, which would be like a feather deck.
So good.
You could do, then there's also, so for permanents, you could do like board control kind of graveyard recursion with Gerard Weatherlight Hero, or maybe Tiana Ship's Captain, just bring back auras and enchant or equipments. Or you could just do like with the new Akiri, you could do like a equipment tribal. Just whenever your creatures attack and they're equipped, you get to draw. And that's actually kind of a new thing for Boros, to just have that kind of draw. Once you decide what kind of archetype you want to build, then there's also like different packages that you could put in. So you have like, probably the most well-known would be like Sunforger package, right?
Oh yeah, especially with that equipment, you have to look at, well, what do you want to do? Because with just that one equipment, you have access to every spell in your deck. So I was like, do you need card advantage? So it can draw you a card. What kind of removal do you need? Do you need creature removal? Because then you have like good cards specifically for that, versus like getting rid of a problematic enchantment or an artifact that is a combo piece on your opponent's board.
Yeah, so we're going to get into all those different things. The packages, there's also maybe less well-known, like a snow package for your Boros deck, or maybe if you're putting an Isochron Scepter in your deck, then how many cards that can go onto the Isochron Scepter do you have to put into your deck? And that takes away slots from the other one. So there's just so many moving parts, but once you get them all working together, it's a beautiful machine, So I think today we're going to be talking about just the most important way to start your deck, which is a mana base, right?
Oh yeah. There's not a lot of ramping that you can do in Boros, but it is there. Actually,
yeah. There's, with the printing of the Cleansing Wildfire.
Oh. And thank you, Wizards.
So do you want to take us through that combination?
Yeah, so Cleansing Wildfire is a new card from Zendikar Rising. It's a sorcery for 1 and a red, and it blows up a land. And it lets the owner of the destroyed land search their library for a basic. So it's beautiful when you're aiming at your opponent's land. So like Gaia's Cradles, Maze of Its, all those horrible lands that you hate seeing over there. Boom, you have a cheap way of getting rid of it. But for you, it could be so much more. So if you are including lands like Darksteel Citadel, and Cascading Cataracts, these lands are indestructible. So when you aim your Cleansing Wildfire at it, the land will not be destroyed, but you still get to search your library for a basic, which is nice. So it doesn't put you behind. It just moves you forward. And it draws you a card. I totally forgot that line. Like, I was so excited about the first part of the card. It's like, destroy a land, search for another one. It draws a card. It's a cantrip. So, so good. Being in white gives you an extra advantage because you can also include a card called Flagstones of Trocaire. When that is destroyed, you get to search for a Plains card. So you have that on the board. You cleanse it with Wildfire. you get 2 triggers, search for 1 basic, and then search for another land that's a plains. So that's 2 for 1. And you draw a card!
And you draw a card. That's really good. And then it's plains, right? Not just a basic?
It just says plains, so you can't get your dual lands.
You get your Sacred Foundry or your Mistveil Plains, whatever you need.
So particularly being in red and white, you have all the fetches that you could put in. So anything that fetches for a plains, anything that fetches for a mountain, boom, look for those. Being in Boros, you have access to the Scryland. You have your Temple of Triumph and you have New Benalia. Both are lands that come into play tapped, but you get to scry 1. And just being able to have that card selection when you don't have a lot of card draw is very helpful.
And another advantage that Boros has being in red, you have access to lands that give your creatures haste, which is really important for a red deck because that's the explosiveness that they have. Without that, they're still on the back foot. You really want to play up that haste enabler. Lands that you can include are Slayer's Stronghold, which includes red and white, haste and vigilance, and 2/0. That's really good for just having a creature that your opponents don't know about come into play and instantly hit them. Really good. You also have Flamekin Village, which is fine. It's even better in an elemental deck, but that's fine. And then you also have the Hainward Battlements. So that is just one more that can give your creatures haste. So if you include Hainward Garrison, you can meld the 2, and that way you have tokens whenever that creature/land attacks. So those are the haste lands that you want to include.
The next set of lands that you could put into your Boros deck just to create a little bit of flexibility are some kind of like utility lands. So you have lands like Myriad Landscape that lets you like pop it, get some more stuff. But you also have things like Battlefield Forge. It gives you 2 colors. It comes into play untapped. It does ping you, but your Boros, you're going to be beating up your opponents a lot faster than you're going to be taking damage from this land. For some fun, you have Mistveil Plains. If you have 2 white permanents, it lets you take something from your graveyard and put it back on the bottom of your library. Now, why is that good? Say you have a Sunforger, or say you have a creature that you can recur because you have another tutor for it. So once it's in the graveyard, just Mistveil it back into your deck and search it up again. The red equivalent to that is something called Mad Blind Mountain. It lets you shuffle your library just randomly. So, like if someone puts something on top and you really don't want it there, someone puts a land on top of your library and you don't want to draw a land. So just shuffle your library and hopefully you can draw something better. For the long game, you have options like Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. So Valakut, the more mountains you're playing, the more damage you can do. Like sometimes just doing 3 damage to something is helpful. Utility creatures, dead, just, maybe 3 damage. Someone doesn't care, but it does add up.
In a format where every one of the cards that you're playing is 1 card less that you have for your opponents when there's multiple opponents. So if you can start getting rid of utility creatures just with your lands, that card advantage is going to add up. And that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're making this Boros deck, because you can't just like draw more cards whenever you want.
Yeah, everything has to pull its weight, like twice as much. For late game Recursion, you have Emeria, the Sky Ruin. If you have enough planes out, every upkeep, you can start getting back your creatures. So that's not a spell that you're using to resurrect your creatures from the graveyard. It's just having enough lands. And then you have the classic Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. It is a colorless land. So if you are in a very color-hungry Boros build, definitely consider this, put it on the back burner. It might not work for you, but for decks that can support it, just giving a random creature, not just your creatures, any target creature, double strike can really turn the game, especially if you see a big creature by opponent A swinging at opponent B. It's like, no, we'll just double it really quick.
I love that you brought that up because that is such a not very represented part of Boros, which is all about combat. So let's see more cards about making other people get into combat or changing the combat dynamics of 2 players who are fighting each other and you're on the sidelines, but now all of a sudden you give another creature double strike. That's something that I'm interested in seeing more of. So
just having that flexibility on Sunhome is nice. All right. So, I mean, having the lands is handy, but like underneath normal circumstances, you're only playing one land a turn. So how do you keep up with those green decks that are putting out multiple lands a turn? Like mana rocks are where you have to turn. So in addition to all the regular things like, was it Soul Ring? You have Mana Crypt for those of you who are awesome. You have to be a little more creative when it comes to Boros because like especially cheap mana rocks that give you colors. Like the colors are where it's going to be really important. Talisman of Conviction. Thank you for printing that, Wizards. It does ping you for 1, but that's okay. You drop it early. It helps you ramp, especially color-wise. Fire Diamond, Marble Diamond, classic OG cards. They enter the battlefield tapped, but that's okay. Just play with what you have.
It's a rampant growth, right?
It is. It's the exactly same as a rampant growth. But go with just the Signet. The Signet is probably the better out of all of the mana rocks from Ravnica. Go with that. You have Darksteel Ingot, which is indestructible. It costs 3, but I think it's worth it for the indestructibility. And then you have the upgrade of Darksteel Ingot, the Skyclave Relic. That late game, you can kick it to make 2 more token copies of it, so your 6 mana becomes 3 colored mana. That's pretty good.
It's pretty good when you're Boros.
Especially indestructible.
One I like to include, probably Solemn Simulacrum, just because you get that ramp, and you can't just have a Soul Ring every time. And then also Burnished Heart, which ramps actually your lands, which is something that's pretty important. And then there's fun stuff that we'll get into that you can do with Burnished Heart and other creatures. Finally, just to ensure you have a smooth mana base, you can include things like Endless Horizons or Land Tax, which ensure you get your lands every turn. Land Tax is such a good card because it not only pulls lands out of your deck, it ensures that you have a full hand, which is really important and something that we're going to be talking about in another video, just all about having cards in hand. Why is that important, and how do you ensure that you keep cards in your hand? So definitely, I mean, it's expensive now, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean, I don't know why I said now. It's like always been expensive, right? But
yeah, the cost of it is worth it because you're taking cards out of your deck and that happens during the upkeep. So come your draw step, hopefully you're drawing something that is gas. It's the removal that you need. It's the creature that you need. It's the equipment that's going to lead you on to victory. Same thing with Endless Horizons. That's just a fun game you get to play with yourself. You're taking the planes out of your library, leaving all of your non-land cards in your library. So then you just like pick a land. You're guaranteed to draw a land and have a land drop for that turn, also ensuring that you have gas to pull from your library.
Right. That's our mana base, right?
You got to be creative. Boros can do it.
So that's where we're going to start for now. I think next we're going to get into probably, permanence versus spells, which one you want to kind of focus on. Of course, you can do both, and you should do both in certain decks, but in specific decks, it's just a matter of thinking like, do I want to play a Stoneforge Mystic in this deck versus Steel Shaper's Gift or Open the Armory? Things like that. So on the surface, your deck, you just built your deck and it's fine. But now there's all these little intricate parts that we can get into of replacing permanent cards with non-permanents, That's
where the fun and the tweaking and really looking at your general. How does your general inspire you to build it?
Okay. That's it, Rob?
That's it.
Okay. Well, I will see you in the future.